Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce the people who are on the panel with me. To my far right is Superintendent of the State Police, Keith Corlett. To my immediate right, Dr. Howard Zucker, Health Commissioner for the State of New York. To my left is Beth Garvey, Special Counsel and Senior Advisor to me. We're here today to talk about vaping. It's a topic that has gotten a lot of attention, and it should. There's also been a lot of confusion and a lot of hype on the issue. So let's start by separating fact from fiction. There are two facts that are central to this issue. And they are incongruous, but they're not inconsistent. The first fact is that vaping is dangerous. Period. Vaping is dangerous for several reasons. First, at a minimum, it is addicting young people to nicotine at a very early age. And nicotine is highly addictive. Doesn't even matter what product you're using. It is getting young people addicted to nicotine. Second, we do not know the long-term health effects of the use of this product. Why? Because there has been no long-term study. So no one can sit here and say long-term use of vaping, where you're inhaling steam and chemicals deep into your lungs, is healthy. Third, the e-cigarettes and the vaping devices are often used to vape other substances. THC, vitamin E acetate, and many of these other products have no controls on them whatsoever, the so-called counterfeit products. They're not cleared by the FDA. There's been no analysis of them at all. So vaping is dangerous. Second fact, vaping is better than smoking. Technically, yes, but so what? Smoking is terrible. It's virtually a high-risk potential death situation. Well, vaping is better than that. Yes, but again, that is not saying much. The vaping companies use that fact to say, we are relevant and we are in the public's interest because we want to get people to stop smoking, and vaping and e-cigarettes is the way to get them to stop smoking. No, there are much better ways to stop smoking than vaping. There are patches, there are lozenges, there are gums, there are therapy sessions, there are medications. There's a whole host of ways to stop smoking, which are better for you than vaping. The only situation, in my mind, factually, that justifies vaping is if you had a person who said, I currently smoke, and I have tried every other device to stop smoking. I've tried everything. Nothing has worked except vaping. That is the only situation that logically justifies vaping. So, two facts. Vaping is dangerous. It's addicting millions of young people to nicotine at a very early age. Some would argue earlier than cigarettes actually introduced young people to vaping and nicotine. Second fact, it is better than smoking, and if there were no other options to stop smoking, then vaping is a better alternative. Just the numbers on young people. In 4 years, the percentage of high school users who use e-cigarettes and vaping has increased 160%. 40% of 12th graders now vape. 27% of high school students are vaping, okay? And remember, vaping is nicotine, and nicotine is highly addictive. So, with these facts in mind, what is the prudent policy going forward? First, you want to say we should ban all flavors besides tobacco and menthol. 68% of the use are flavored products. And the flavored products are highly attractive to young people. Names like bubble gum, cotton candy, Captain Crunch, which was my favorite. These are obviously targeted to young people and highly effective at targeting young people. We would ban all flavors besides tobacco and menthol. There is a debate about whether or not menthol should be banned. And Dr. Zucker and I have discussed this. Dr. Zucker feels at this point he is not yet ready to ban menthol. Why? There is some data that suggests for menthol cigarette smokers, again, who have tried every other device to stop smoking, they tried the lozenge, they tried the medication, they tried everything, nothing else worked, there's very limited pool, and they're trying vaping, the menthol flavor for the vaping helps menthol cigarette smokers. So at this point, Dr. Zucker's recommendation is he is not prepared to recommend banning menthol, but Department of Health is going to continue study, consultations with the Public Health and Health Planning Council, and that could change in the future. But at this point, he's not ready to recommend banning menthol. Second, we're going to propose legislation next year that will ban advertising directed towards young people. Ironically, current vaping companies that were subject to the 1998 Tobacco Master Settlement are already prohibited from marketing tobacco products to young people. New companies that were not part of the tobacco settlement in 1998 are not so prohibited. We would pass a law in the state that says all such companies are prohibited from marketing to young people. Third, the law is clear. You cannot sell these products to people under 18 years old. It is theoretically a criminal offense to be selling these products to people under 18 years old. It is also patently obvious when you say 40% of the 12th graders report vaping and e-cigarette use, that people under 18 are purchasing these products. The state police superintendent Corlett is going to work hand in glove with DOH Commissioner, Department of Health Commissioner Zucker, to coordinate their efforts to crack down on the stores that are selling products to people under 18 years old. The state has a number of tools in their toolbox in this situation. These stores that sell these products often have other state licenses. They may be licensed lottery sales offices. They may be SLA, State Liquor Authority, licensed to sell beer or alcohol in those establishments. So if they are found in violation, and again, that is a possible criminal sanction, endangering the welfare of a minor for selling under 18. But beyond that, there are civil fines, civil penalties, and they can lose other state licenses. But that crackdown is going to be aggressive, and it's going to start now. The 18-year-old limit will be raised to 21 in a few weeks, November 13th. So right now, the legal limit is 18. That's being raised to 21 this November 13th. And we want to make sure all the sellers and the public know that that's going to happen. So we're going to be taking those actions. The way they are implemented is Dr. Zucker will make a recommendation to the Public Health and Health Planning Council. They have the ability to issue emergency regulations, which could go into effect as soon as about 2 weeks. That would do the ban. And Dr. Zucker's advice, which I think is correct, is this is a burgeoning health crisis. Take action now. Also, learn from the past. Learn from the past. In 1964, the Surgeon General does a report that links cigarettes to cancer. 1964. We wind up taking action against the tobacco companies in 1998, where we have the Maine tobacco settlement, where with provisions that they could not advertise, et cetera. Millions of people died. Billions of dollars were spent. Many of these companies are related to tobacco companies that have a new device to sell nicotine, which addicts the user to come back and continue to buy their product. It is the tobacco cigarette model all over again. Try it, get addicted to nicotine, and now you are a customer for life. In my mind, I don't think it's an outrageous parallel to say, look at the work we're doing now with the opioid companies. They sold pain medication that they knew was highly addictive, that they circulated, they advertised, they distributed. It created hydrocodone, Oxycontin. It created addictions in the users, which then provided their business relationship with more customers. Get the customer addicted, and they will keep coming back. That tobacco, cigarettes, and now these vaping e-cigarettes. It's still nicotine, and nicotine is what's addictive. Even putting aside the other products that might be added, THC, vitamin E, the nicotine in and of itself is the addictive drug. And that is what they are selling. With that, let me turn it over to Dr. Zucker for comments.
Thank you, Governor. I just want to mention and reiterate what the Governor mentioned, that this is a public health crisis. The numbers since we last spoke with all of you, we were at 49 cases in New York State, and just the other day we're up to 64 cases. That's just New York, and obviously the numbers in the country are rising as well. And my recommendation to the Governor is that we bring the Public Health Policy, Health Planning Council back together to discuss this and to have a vote to eliminate the e-cigarette, the flavored e-cigarettes. This is such an important issue. It is evolving, it's changing every day, and we need to tackle this as fast as possible. And I just would reiterate what the Governor mentioned. We saw this with tobacco. We saw this decades ago. We don't need to repeat history. I think we need to tackle this right now and do it fast.
Yeah, one other point. Well, where is the federal government? who knows where the federal government is? And that's just a general statement, right? First, we heard signals that maybe the administration understood this and they were going to be responsive, and then you get a tweet that suggests the exact opposite. I'm not waiting for the federal government to come protect the people of the state of New York. I've been disappointed time and time and time again. The political influence of these companies is not to be underestimated. These are very powerful business interests. If you listen to their spokespeople, they threaten the president politically with the power of their user customer base, which is now addicted. So I'm not relying or waiting for the federal government. I don't expect them to do anything responsibly, to act responsibly, because I've never seen them act responsibly. So our destiny is in our own hands, and we're taking action. Questions?
Governor, can you say more about a ban on flavors other than tobacco and menthol? Are you considering legislation, an executive order? What's up with that?
The ban will be done. Dr. Zucker is recommending the ban. Dr. Zucker is recommending that the ban be put into effect immediately through what's called an emergency regulation as part of a declaration of a health emergency. There is a council called the Public Health and Health Planning Council, mouthful, that has the authority to issue an emergency regulation for effect. Dr. Zucker is going to go to that council in the next few days, recommend to them that they immediately ban flavored vaping products and e-cigarettes, except tobacco and menthol. The question on menthol is an open question pending more data and discussion.
If and when that order goes into, when that emergency declaration is made, I presume, there's lots of flavored products on the shelves now. Is that where the law enforcement comes in? Do you demand that they be taken off of shelves?
Well, it isn't a demand. It would be by law. You cannot sell those products. You would give them a couple of week window to get the products off the shelves. But by law, you could not sell those products except tobacco and menthol, and the caveat on menthol is that it's still under discussion.
So I'm kind of envisioning prohibition when police would bust up the whiskey barrel. So I should not be envisioning that.
You are
Electronic.
that says more about you than the issue at hand. It is a romantic kind of vision and interesting, adventurous. Yeah, I don't see health department officials like breaking barrels. It's not their style. But I like the imagery. I would be down for that, frankly. But I don't think the Department of Health does that.
In terms of a timetable, what are we looking at in terms of
Couple of weeks.
end of October, middle of October?
What do we want to say?
Beginning of October. So what the Department of Health would like to do is to start enforcing this as soon as October 4th. So if the Public Health and Health Planning Council meets early next week, adopts the regulation, that would give a minimum 2-week time period to start to warn retailers before stepped-up enforcement begins.
And look, let's take a step back on this, right? Sometimes it's simpler and more obvious than we make it. You're selling products called bubble gum, cotton candy, Captain Crunch. You're marketing to young people, and it's nicotine. And it's nicotine in a device that creates steam and heat, and you inhale it into your lungs, and there has been no long-term study of this. How and why would you allow this to go on and take the risk? And the vaping company's only rationale is, well, we're better than cigarettes. Okay, so instead of hitting myself on the head with a metal pipe, I'll hit myself on the head with a wooden stick. The metal pipe is worse. Yeah, no, I understand the metal pipe is worse, but the wooden stick isn't great either, right? And the only way you would get there is if the person tried every other device to stop smoking and nothing worked. The lozenge didn't work, the gum didn't work, the medication didn't work, the therapy didn't work, cold turkey didn't work. The only thing that works is vaping. In that limited circumstance, yes, vaping is better than cigarette smoking. But only in that limited circumstance, which means the person is already a cigarette smoker, which means they're probably already an adult. How does that justify selling to a 15-year-old bubble gum to get them addicted on your product through the use of nicotine, which is addictive? I am a former cigarette smoker. It is highly addictive and highly difficult to stop and to stay away from cigarettes for the rest of your life. It is a real struggle. The addiction to nicotine is powerful. And you get people when they're young and they're vulnerable, and you advertise it, and I'm the Marlboro Man, and this is cool, and all the cool young people do this, and I'm young, I'm impressionable, I want to fit in, I want the image, I want to be accepted. Yeah, I know. But then you regret it for the rest of your life.
So then you say cigarettes are more dangerous, whereas the ban, the attempt at a ban on selling cigarettes?
Well, there is a law against selling cigarettes
And
to
there's one
children.
against vaping as well, it's just pointed out. So is there no room to try to get that?
Well, we do, you have to do both. There's a law against both, and we have to do both. Where we're seeing the outrageous spike right now is vaping. Because, yes, there is a law, but with the tobacco companies, you had an agreement in 1998, which was very effective. That said they can't market to young people, they can't advertise to young people, etc. That does not exist with many of these vaping companies. And you look at how they're advertising and what they're promoting, and you look at their ads on social media, they are going right for that young people market. You never heard of a cigarette. I'm sorry?
But then is the problem just the advertising to children and not the consumption of it for children?
No, it's the consumption, but they're connected. It's the consumption. These vaping companies are marketing to children. They're very effective. Tobacco companies cannot do that marketing. And you have this, it's beyond the marketing. It is now in the youth culture that this is a cool thing to do. And you look at the numbers of growth, they are explosive. So what do? You go to those shops that sell the product, which, as you accurately point out, legally cannot sell it to 18. You, by the way, raise the age to 21, which we've done, happens November 13th, and then you make sure they're enforcing that age ban. Step two, pass a piece of legislation that says these vaping companies, e-cigarette companies cannot market to youth like the tobacco companies agreed in 1998 to no longer market to youth.
Governor, in terms of the raising the age to 21, so that's already been gone through whatever channels it has to.
Yes.
Takes effect November 13th?
Yes.
And is that for all tobacco products too, and vaping?
Yes.
Yes.
Spoke about the federal ban. If that ban does go through, is yours going to be any different?
What would the federal ban, what would they do? What does your crystal ball say? What does it say? When you look into the crystal ball, what do you see President Trump doing?
Mine doesn't work on Sundays.
It doesn't. Who knows what they will do, if they will do, right? We had the conversation on an ongoing basis with guns, right? Every time there's another gun tragedy, the president says, yes, we're going to do something, we have to do something, we will do something, and then nothing happens. So here he said, we have to do something about vaping, we must do something about vaping, and the next day he sent out a tweet that said, wait, vaping isn't that bad, vaping is some, whatever he said. So I am out of the mindset of hoping for federal intelligence. And the old expression, you're on your own, is where I think we are. We are on our own. Yesterday we announced a very extensive environmental program. Why? Because we are on our own. Opioids, we're on our own. Guns, we're on our own. Vaping, we're on our own.
These bans can be done without the legislature?
The ban can be done without the legislature because Dr. Zucker's recommendation to the, what they call the FIPIC, Public Health and Health Planning Council, is going to be that this is a health emergency, that council has the legal authority to pass an emergency regulation, and they have the legal authority to pass an emergency regulation that bans flavored e-cigarettes, et cetera, which again is 68% of the market. Just think of that.
What are the similar efforts with hookah smoking, would that fall under this, or any thoughts about it?
Do you remember what we did with hookah smoking? Do you remember?
It's still part of the legislation, Chapter 100, that increases the age to age 21. There's also a federal ban on tobacco flavors that includes all but menthol and tobacco as well, and that would apply to tobacco used in a hookah as well.
I would say Juul is the biggest vaping company in the world. They've been very aggressive lobbying and marketing. It seems like your ban will put a real dent in their bottom line. So do you have any message to Juul specifically?
No, except, look, I believe business companies will do what is in their best interest, right? This is a parallel to cigarettes. We've been here. They marketed cigarettes. They knew it had nicotine. They knew it was addictive. They knew there were tars in cigarettes that could cause possible health consequences. They kept marketing them. And they secreted the information that was not helpful to them. And again, because billions of dollars and millions died, 1998 we finally end that. 30 years after the Surgeon General says smoking is linked to cancer, it then takes us 30 years. Why? Because they were big and they were powerful and they were making money. It was about the money, and they were making it. And they're not going to stop until you force them to stop. This is big business, and they have big lobbyists. And so what if we're addicting 14-year-olds to nicotine? So what? From a business model and a sick mindset, it works. Once I get them addicted, they have to come back and buy the product again. So it's the best business model. Get them addicted, and you own them.
So do you think Juul is lying when it says they're working hard to prevent young people from buying their products?
You're working hard. I don't know who does what advertising, but certainly as an industry, I don't know what Juul does versus, but there's advertising all over the place for young people. Where would you come up with bubble gum unless you were trying to attract young people? Captain Crunch, how many adults besides me are still attracted to Captain Crunch? Cotton candy. The social media presence is on places where young people go. They want to get them young, the way they did with cigarettes. Get them addicted young, have them as a customer and a user for a long period of time. Do I believe these big companies and these big lobbyists are very good at stopping action? Yes. Do I believe they may be responsible for stopping federal action? Yes. The way I think the NRA stopped federal action on guns. I think the Juul and industry lobbyists are stopping federal action, and I believe they will be successful, because I believe their money can buy Washington. So what do? You're on your own. Let the state act. And I believe New York State may be the first state to have the regulation actually go into effect, and I would encourage other states to look at it, because I think waiting for the federal government and federal action, or for an effective FDA action, is a fool's errand.
We have time for more questions, guys.
Believe this will be challenged in court?
Look, in this world, anything can be challenged in court by anyone, so nothing would surprise me. And this is big money, by the way. Doctor?
Just want to make one comment here. New York has done an amazing job of getting kids away from tobacco products. If you look over the last couple decades, the numbers have dropped dramatically. And we saw in the last year, or maybe not 2018, 2017, a small uptick in the increase in cigarette smoking. And is this related to the use of e-cigarettes or not? But we don't want kids getting addicted to anything, surely not either products, nicotine, or tobacco. So we're looking at that. Like I said, it may just be an aberration, but we follow and monitor all of that.
The menthol, remember, there's a caveat that's subject to further study. It's not a definitive conclusion.
Would New York become the first state to ban these flavored products?
There's been another state that has talked about it. I don't believe it's gone into effect yet. Do we know if it's gone into effect?
We've not seen it yet.
What state is that?
Michigan.
Michigan.
Still off topic, writing about gun control. Governor, has anyone, have any of the Democratic presidential candidates signed your gun control pledge yet? And if not, why do you think they're holding off?
It's a very good question. I think the Democrats are not handling the gun issue as well as they could be, either substantively or politically. I think this nation is ready to pass gun control. Every poll says that. I think the evidence has been overwhelming. But I don't think the Democrats have clearly enough offered an intelligent, reasonable, responsible approach in a unified voice. I can't tell you where the presidential candidates are. I don't know Bernie Sanders' gun position. He says, all I've heard him say is he's against AR-15s. I haven't gone to the websites and studied all the details, but frankly, it's not dependent on me to go study the websites. This is a main topic in the election. They should be informing voters on their position. I think they all have different positions on guns. I think the House Democratic bill, which if you had to say, what is the Democrats' position, you would look to the Democratic House bill, right? I think it is a mistake to exempt private transfers because you are creating a loophole that will swallow the rule. Just the way the gun show loophole swallowed the rule of you needed a background check. I mean, look at the gun show loophole. You need a background check if you go into a store that's a registered gun dealer, and then they do a NICS check. Well, what happens if you can't go through a NICS check? Well, then just go to a gun show down the block, and you can buy it there, because they don't do background checks. Okay, we're going to close that loophole, but we're going to open another one. And if you can't do that, then just have a private transfer of a gun that goes to you. You'll just push those people who can't pass the background check from the store to the gun show to a private transfer. So I think it's a mistake. And you know what we did in this state 6 years ago, which shows that you can do all of these things and the world does not stop spinning. Yes, did I incur political damage? Yes. But did I do the right thing? Yes. And do I believe we saved lives? Yes. And it's been 6 years. And nobody can come up to me and say, I have a legal right to buy a gun in the state of New York, and I haven't been able to buy it. Nobody's ever said that. And to the extent there's an inconvenience on a private transfer, you have to have a background check. It's an inconvenience. And if I want to give you a gun, and you can pass a background check, I say, you know what, we have to go into a gun store, and we have to get a background check run on you. But by the way, we have to re-register the gun anyway. So you have to go through that process anyway, unless we're going to allow me to give you a gun and you never register the gun, which would really be absurd. Then the whole red flag concept, everything would go out the window.
Any update on the pledge?
No one has specifically agreed to our law, which is the most aggressive position in the country, by the way.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.